Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we clean up the front walkway flower bed. So let's go. Before we begin, I think it's good to see some before shots just to see what we're working with here. This area over here has a bunch of pansies at the base. If you'll recall, in the springtime, I had a bunch of pansies that had overwintered from last year, and they looked beautiful. A number of times this year, I've cut those pansies way back, and they are just barely starting to bloom. I'm going to leave them because I think that they might still bloom this year, and they might even bloom next year. There are also some Dusty Miller. I'm going to leave those. I live in zone 5B where Dusty Miller is not hardy, but if we have a mild enough winter, the Dusty Miller do return for us. So I'm going to leave those as well. I have some pots here that have dahlias in them. We potted those up in the spring and they looked really, really pretty during the summertime. To be honest with you, I stopped deadheading them and I wish I hadn't, because dahlias will bloom well into the late summer and even the fall. So on my to-do list for next year is deadhead my dahlias, because I want them to look really, really pretty. I used to collect the seeds from dahlias, and occasionally I still do, but I have enough dahlias now that it's just easier for me to overwinter the tubers and not worry about collecting the seeds. Therefore, it totally makes sense for me to keep on deadheading them. Anyway, my plan for the dahlias is I'm going to take the pots out of this area. They have irrigation in them. We're going to remove the irrigation. I am absolutely not going to pull the dahlias out of the pots yet, though. The reason is we have not had a frost yet. It really is advisable to leave the dahlias where they are, because they are going to continue feeding energy into the tubers. The best time to pull the dahlias out here in zone 5B is once a nice hard frost has hit them. So I'm going to wait, and I'm not going to remove them from their pots. It is so hard to remove annuals when they still look pretty good. Up along the walkway here, there is Alyssum as well as Lobelia, both of which I started from seed under my grow lights this winter. They still look pretty good, but the time has come. I will be cutting those back. There are some stakes in the center here, and that's where I had some tall snapdragons. I'll be removing the stakes and cutting those snapdragons back. There are also still in the center here some Dusty Miller, which I plan on keeping and not touching. And there are also a bunch of dahlias. Same thing, we're going to keep the dahlias in there until a frost hits them. And then the plan is I will dig those out and I will show you my method for storing the dahlia tubers for the winter months. There is still a lot of beauty going on in this bed here. And for the most part, I will be keeping a number of plants as is in the center part here. There are a bunch of dahlias. Same thing, we are just going to keep the dahlias where they are until a frost hits them. And check out the beautiful Montauk daisy. This is my first year growing those in my garden. I really like them. I think they're very pretty, and I can't wait to divide them and move them around my yard next year. Starting over here, there are a bunch of Stella d'Oro daylilies, and the plan is to cut those all the way back. Also, throughout this bed here, there are a bunch of leaves. Even though I've been very diligent about blowing leaves off my lawn, when it comes to certain beds like this flower bed, I have not touched the leaves in there, for the simple reason that there is just too much going on, a lot of plants happening. So just by cleaning up this flower bed, it will allow me to then access all those leaves and get them out of here. The irrigation has been turned off for a few weeks now, but each of these pots is hooked up to irrigation. So all I'm going to do here is just take the irrigation off. There's like an irrigation ring at the base. A couple of these, like this one here, I know that the one in the center, I have 5 pots here. The one in the center was a dark pink colored Dahlia, and I know I don't have a lot of this plant in my yard, so I definitely will be collecting the seeds off of this particular Dahlia. The other thing I have not done with my Dahlias yet is I have not labeled them so that I know the different colors. So I do need to still do that, but I'm going to specifically put this pot aside separate from the other 4 pots that were in this section here, because the 2 on this end and the 2 on this end were a light pink color. This one in particular was a dark pink color. It's so important this time of year to still keep plants that have blossoms on them out in your garden. The pollinators are still hungry and they are still looking for food. Even if it makes our life easier by cutting back all our plants, we definitely want to still keep some plants out there that have blooms on them so that our friendly pollinators have something to eat. Well, these pots are now ready to go. So again, as soon as I get a frost, and once all of the leaves and foliage turn like a dark brown, almost black color, that tells me it is now time to dig the tubers. So what I have is I have these tags that I'm going to use a Sharpie marker, and I'm just going to write on the tags the different colors of the dahlias. Now, again, I remember that all 4 of these are this color here, a very, very pretty pink color. And so there's no specific type of dahlia. These are actually all dahlias that I started from a packet of seeds probably, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. And so I'm happy just calling it a short, it's really a short variety, and it's a light pink colored dahlia. So I will make tags for each of these, and I'm going to put them at the base, almost like the stalk of the plant. And that way, when it comes time for me to cut each of these down, I'll still have a tag with each of these dahlias. That one over there is the one that's the darker pink color, the one that I don't have a ton of in my yard. So I definitely want to collect the seeds off that. And what you're looking for when you're collecting the seeds is you want the seed pod to be, it's almost like papery. It looks kind of like this, and I'll bring it up closer to you so you can see. And that's a nice example of a dahlia seed pod that you would want to pick. And just by taking it apart, I can see a seed right here. And that's what you're looking for. The seed should look something like that. I'll be making sure it dries out, and then I'll put it in a small Ziploc bag, and I'll label it short dahlia, dark pink. At the base of these plants, I planted trailing white lobelia, which is an annual here where I live. If you can believe it, I never bought these seeds. I collected them from the university where my daughter attends college, and they looked really pretty. They're very dainty. Here's a close-up shot at what the trailing white lobelia looks like. When it comes to working on my flower beds, I like to do multiple things at once, and definitely a few of these things like collecting the seeds of certain plants was on my list. So now's the time to do it. You want to do it before you get a hard frost, and that's coming up any day now. Typically, you can collect the seeds of the lobelia down near the base of the plant, like if you look underneath. The seeds are teeny tiny. If I just go like that, it's windy. I have seeds there. You might not see them, but trust me, I have little teeny tiny seeds. So I'm going to put these where it's not windy, and then we're going to keep going on with this project. I've been pretty diligent about blowing the leaves off my lawn, but it definitely was not easy getting into this flower bed and getting the leaves out. But now that we've pulled the pots out, it's a lot easier for me to access everything in here. The old gardener in me would have just pulled all of this out and just want a nice clean slate for next year. The new gardener in me says, well, wait a minute, these pansies might just overwinter and look really pretty in the spring. Even if it looks kind of like a weedy mess, I want to take a chance with that because that's what happened last year. And it was so pretty when this was all blooming with the pansies. The old gardener in me would pull out all of the Dusty Miller or even cut them back if I wanted to keep them and see if they survive. The new gardener in me says, well, I think they actually have a better chance of survival if I don't cut them back and just leave them as is. And then next spring, I'll see what kind of new growth there is, if any, at the base of these plants, and then I can cut them back then. In the center here, there are some tall vinca. It's an annual, and they are white color. I don't have much of the white color vinca in my yard. For right now, I'm going to leave these in here because I do want to collect the seeds off of those. But as I was cleaning in the bed, there are some snapdragons that are in here. And now that I've cleaned in there and exposed them a little bit more, I don't like how they're so tall and leggy. And to be honest with you, I don't like the tall snapdragons in my flower beds. I think they have a place in certain flower beds, but personally, I did not love them this year. I don't like that I had to stake them, and they just got very leggy looking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut them down to the ground level. The old gardener in me would just pull these plants out, these annual snapdragons. But the new gardener in me has done research and read that it's actually better to leave a lot of these type of plants, the base part of them, the roots in the ground, because that way I'm not disturbing the soil as much. And ultimately that's good for our soil. We don't want to be disturbing, digging, moving things around if we don't have to be. And the roots will eventually decay and break down. So I'd rather just leave them as is. And next spring, if the roots are still there, then I'll go ahead and I can pull out the snapdragon plants. But for right now, they're not doing any harm by just leaving them as is if I just cut them at the base. The other thing I'm noticing while working in the flower bed is that some of these pansies have gotten very leggy. But due to the fact that I still have a lot of work to do in this flower bed, for right now, I'm going to leave these pansies as is because I am noticing that some of them are budded up, and I'd rather just not even worry about the pansies for right now. Also in this flower bed are a bunch of perennial seedlings. I spy with my little eye. There's a columbine plant in here. I have a whole bunch of the great blue lobelia seedlings in here. I also have a whole bunch of black-eyed Susan or Rebecca seedlings in here. I'm going to leave them for the simple reason that next spring I can dig them up and move them somewhere else in my yard. Sometimes it can get very overwhelming and you just want to do all these jobs all at once. But now there is a thing called time. We have to be realistic about how much time we have and where do we want to spend that time. I definitely noticed a lot of bees on the dahlias. That's why I'm not so sad about removing some of these other flowers like the snapdragons. Honestly, a majority of the bees I'm seeing this time of year are on the dahlias. All right, that's all I can see for right now in this bed that I want to take care of. We're going to keep moving in this direction here, and we need to get rid of these. So let's tackle this project next. We're going to do a few things here. I really, really, really do not want to get rid of this. It looks so pretty still, but I really just need to get at it because I'm going to feel better knowing that this bed is quote unquote done versus I need to come back and do more to it this year. So again, I'm just going to cut it down at the base, but I'm going to leave the roots in the ground. I have two pop-up bins here. One is full of leaves, and the one over here behind me is where I'm putting this type of material. The leaves are going to get shredded with my leaf shredder. And the rest of the greenery that we're getting, all the plant material, that's going to go into the compost bin. Now, most of these, I don't need to cut them down into smaller pieces. They are good to go, and they can go directly in my compost bin. And all of this material here, the Lobelia and the Alyssum, is great green material for the compost bin. And then the leaves, which I'm going to shred into smaller pieces, is great brown material. This time of year is my favorite time of year for the simple reason that I can make a lot of compost. So the main jobs here that we're going to tackle, we're going to cut back the lobelia, we're going to cut back the alyssum, we're going to pull this out. This is what was staking all of the snapdragons, and we're going to cut the snapdragons down to the base. Do you ever set goals for yourself and then halfway through whatever it is that you're working on, you realize that goal really wasn't realistic? Well, that was me with this project. And guess what? That's okay. For today, I think we did pretty good. We got a lot done. Bottom line is, we're going to call this part one of two because I think it's going to take one more day to get this project completed. So what I'm going to do right now is just pick up a little bit, and then I'm going to go over what we got done today and what the plan is for tomorrow. And this is exactly why we want to keep as many flowers out in our landscape until we possibly can. That little bee right there is enjoying life. So is that one. Look at all this green material that we collected today. This bin is full, almost to the top. And right next to it, not too shabby, we got a lot of leaves. Still a lot more to collect, but that's great brown material that I can shred up. And I already showed you the dahlias that we pulled out from the irrigation, and they are now just waiting for a frost before we can deal with them next. We did a good job with cleaning out the leaves, pulling the pots out, and cutting back some annuals that were in there. And up along the inner part of the walkway, we did a really good job. We cut back all the lobelia and alyssum that was towards the front of this border. And also on this side here, we removed the stakes that the snapdragons were attached to and cut those snapdragons back as well. And we continued that all the way along this way, which is pretty good. Took a long time, but it's good progress. By the way, look how beautiful that tree is right there. Oh, so pretty. These leaves are dropping right here, and more leaves are going to drop. If we get to it, we're going to rake out some of the leaves from beneath the rhododendrons. But the main priority for tomorrow is on this side of the bed. There are some more annuals to cut back. There are some more stakes where the snapdragons were to be removed. Again, we're going to leave any of the dahlias that are in here. And then as we work our way this way, we're going to be cutting back all of the daylilies. Gardening is a process, and setting goals is part of gardening. It's a great thing to set a goal. It's an even better thing to meet some or part of that goal. And that's what I feel like we did today. I'm very happy with what we got done. Honestly, this is quite a big space, all the space here. So if we can tackle this project in 2 days, I will be thrilled. I hope you've been enjoying your gardens. I hope you learned something new today. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.